delicious.
It's Lavi, been here for 2 years. Let's hear from our other panelists.
My name's Richard, I'm from Berkshire, been in China for 7.5 years. Favourite things about China would be the language, history, people.
Hi, my name is Tianqing and I've been in Beijing for 3 months. The best part about being here is the amazing, outgoing and friendly people that I've met.
I'm Ryan, I've been here now 6 months. The thing I like most about China is that people are very polite, very welcoming to foreign workers.
My name is Teresa Chills, been in China for over 5 years now. One thing I like about China is business connections.
Hi, I'm Ripley. I've been in China for 4 years. I think things I really like about China, the food's great and I really like the traditional culture.
Hi everyone, it's Lavi here. Welcome to my channel. So today we have a sit-down discussion on what it is like living in China, but also our views of what is happening in our society today. So here are my guests. Welcome everyone. Hi. So feel awkward. Right, so I'm going to just ask you a few questions of what people have asked me to ask some people that are living in China. So first one is, how did people you know react when they heard you were going to China?
It's not very common as a destination. I mean, I think for me, most people assumed that that meant I was like obsessed with anime or kung fu or something like that. Yeah, they didn't really get why. I guess they just thought it was a bit of a random choice and that was probably a bit mental.
For me, it's a normal thing. Most Zambians or Africans find China quite cheap, so you just always end up here. Plus, I did civil engineering from an undergraduate, so I wouldn't do it anywhere else. If you see most construction projects and everything going on in Africa, they're all being done by Chinese, so why should I go anywhere else? So they understood that about my coming here.
Similar for me really, my industry is in sport, and the Chinese government have been very vocal about how they want to do well within football. So when I discussed it with my family, it was a natural thing for them to say, great, go and be part of trying to help the country to build a better sport program and a better football program. And the other thing that goes with it is people talk about, okay, you go to China and you're going to earn a lot of money. Because China is well known for its economic powers, shall we say.
That's a good way to describe it.
My friends and family all knew that I wanted to move to China, so they weren't surprised at all. Sorry, my answer's really boring.
I just graduated from college, and so when I told people I was going, I think they're all a little bit surprised, but then they're all like, yes, I'm so excited for you and everything that you're going to do, because it seemed like a good opportunity to take.
So quite positive views and feedbacks from your family from back home. Yeah. Good. So what advice would you give others coming to China?
Learn the language. Learn the language. Try and learn as much as you can before you go and enroll in a class as soon as you get here.
I think for me, you've got to be prepared to make some personal adjustments. I think it can be very stressful because it's so different to the UK, and I think if you come here and you're expecting everybody to fit in around you, you'll not last very long. I think you have to come here with the mindset that you're going to adjust to what's here first.
It's all about not having an expectation of what you're going to expect that's going to come, like, oh yeah, it's going to be the same type of food that I get at takeout. No, it's not.
You change to fit the environment that you're in. The environment doesn't change around you.
Yeah, when you go to Rome, do what the Romans do.
Yeah.
So don't expect to change the locals. You have to adjust to their ways.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you won't like it. You won't like it here.
And they won't like you either,
Yeah.
to be fair.
And I mean, we give meanings to certain behaviours about respect and things like that, but here those similar behaviours don't necessarily mean the same things. So, you know, when you're getting pushed on the subway, it's not personal, you know. Everybody's just in a rush to get somewhere, you know. So if you get upset about this, you're going to be upset every day.
It's quite amazing that I've never seen a fight on the subway. And if that was happening in London, there'd be fights everywhere. But everyone just, well, there's a lot of people, and we all need to get to work, and we all need to get on the subway. So it is what it is. Like, no one really complains about it, you know?
I don't think they see it. It's just that we're foreigners, that's why we can see it. But they think that's the norm, and you're out here thinking it's abnormal. So it's a bit of an unfair judgment if you take it that way.
The best way I've heard it is, in China there is no personal space.
Yeah, definitely.
Personal space doesn't exist.
I would say probably my main advice is to remember before you get here that you are going to be a foreigner, because so many people forget that because we're just not used to it in your own country. We're not used to having to think that way, but as soon as you arrive, you need to understand that everyone is going to think of you as the foreigner. And it's quite a different meaning here than that would mean at home, because it's just a lot less, really, and you need to be prepared for that. So.
Yeah.
My advice would be know what you're coming to China for. If it's business, if it's school, if it's whatever it is. If it's business, try to get out there, get connections and all that. If you want to learn the culture, make sure you travel across China and learn the culture, because China from north to south is different. So just know what you're coming here for and then go all in for it. That's my advice.
I think that's good advice, definitely. And I'd add to that and just say, don't make any assumptions that you would have in your home country about coming here when it comes to negotiating contracts and things like this. Think of it as a total blank, and you need to ask even the most obvious questions to get clarity.
And you need to be stubborn as well. A lot of the time, actually.
You have to be stubborn.
Okay. That leads on to my next question, actually. Thank you for that. What is the hardest part of your job and the hardest part of living in China as a foreigner?
For me, I would say because I'm a student, and I'm doing part-time modeling. So the hardest part of that job is just the discrimination, that's it, yeah. I'm not gonna go so deep into it, but yeah.
So in terms of discrimination, would you say on regards to being a female or regarding
Well, actually being female is a bit of a plus in the industry, because black men don't even get the jobs, but with being black in the industry, you get the jobs, yes, but you just don't get the same amount of pay. So like the white girls, the Russian girls will get maybe like 3,000 a day, and you get like 1,500, which is like half of what they're getting. So, and you work like 5 to 8 hours.
The same hours.
So yeah, you work the same hours, same event, but you get paid differently. And they let you know before you get the job. So it's like, okay, we're not paying you as much as them. If you don't want the job, you can take it or leave it. Yeah.
So
I mean, it's okay since they let me know, but what can I do when I want the money? I have to go for it. Yeah.
I just started a job 3 months ago, and the hardest part for me has been getting used to how to communicate with everybody. I work at 2 different schools, and I work with probably 10 different teachers, and trying to coordinate between all of them and get information from all of them and get feedback from them as well can be really challenging. And like sometimes someone will say something about me, but I won't hear it from them, I'll hear it from someone else, and then it's like, it gets very convoluted and there's like lots of talking that happens and I don't always know who's talking or who's saying what or what they're even talking about. And so that kind of communication has been really hard to get used to for me, especially coming from a place and a country where like bureaucracy and like organizations and company are all very direct, and people are very direct when they give you requests or want something from you.
Yeah, it seems to go through Jane to Anne to Patrick, and then Patrick's forgot to then tell you. So that's happened a few times to me. It's like the communication seems to get lost when it comes to Chinese and the foreigner within the workplace. And I found with myself to be able to combat that is to go to the source directly. Sometimes in the West, when we do that, it's seen as a no-no to do that, to go to the higher up. But here, you kind of got no choice sometimes.
See, for me, I've experienced so many differences from working in the UK to working here. The business practices and everything are very, very different. Even the way that so here you get a holiday, but you have to work the Saturday and Sunday before. So there's 5 days, but you got to give us 2 days back. So it's sort of it happens on quite a small level like that. But then also it happens on a bigger level where the boss is the boss. The boss is right, always. Regardless of when they're wrong, they're still right.
And you have to suck up.
Yeah, and you have to learn to tolerate that and deal with that frustration. When perhaps your background, your understanding of something, your education is different, it kind of feels like you're the expert employed and then told what to do.
Yeah, I would say I found that a lot. Like in my type of industry, especially, I work with like PR, and I find often that females, especially female foreigners, are not taking it seriously, and they don't really want to hear suggestions, especially. So if a male foreigner colleague gives a suggestion, it will be listened to. Whereas if I'm given one, it's no, we're doing it this way. And that's something which I've seen really, really obviously, to the point where I've even had to ask male colleagues to give my suggestions on my behalf, and then suddenly they're great ideas. Whereas if I was to put them forward myself, you know, occasionally they're listened to, but most of the time it's, no, the boss has already decided we're doing it this way.
Is your boss female?
The boss actually is female.
Yeah, probably why.
But yeah, but it doesn't seem to make a difference really. I found the same in all companies where the boss is male or female. Generally, you're not talking to them directly for those sorts of things. It's the people below, and your suggestions aren't passed up or aren't discussed. So yeah, I found that sexism is quite prevalent really. And it seems a lot more so for female foreigners than it does for female Chinese.
I guess like a lot of people have touched on, like we all have quite similar experiences, but the thing that I always notice is the way Chinese manage and the way foreigners manage can be very, very different, right? So for example, at the company that I worked at, we were taught to train the people below us, so they have the skills to improve in their current role and possibly move into promotion. Whereas that ethos of training and development wasn't always as common from some of our Chinese management. There were some that did it, but it certainly wasn't as common as it was with some of our Western counterparts. So, but on the whole, like I found working in China to be there was obviously differences to the UK, but generally, if you were working, it's quite similar to the UK. If you're working with nice people, generally the job is quite good and it can be quite enjoyable. I mean, there are awful people in China and the UK to work for.
A lot depends on your colleagues.
Yes, I've been very fortunate. I've always had the pleasure to work for generally really nice people, and the teams that I've had to manage have generally been really, really nice to manage. So I guess maybe I've been quite fortunate.
So with regards to the second part was living in China as a foreigner. How have we found living in China? Is it difficult regarding housing, accommodation, getting around, going to the shops and so forth?
Everyone's experience is different. When I came here, I could already speak a reasonable amount of Chinese, so getting around was okay. I could negotiate a house and an apartment when I first got here in Chinese and stuff like that. And that's the big thing that I've always noticed. Like,
I think a lot depends on your Chinese level.
If you don't speak any Mandarin at all, it is really hard here. It is really difficult. There's no two ways about it. But if you speak even just a little bit, like there is a door that sort of magically opens and leads to none. I guess.
Well, for me, I can speak a bit of Chinese, nowhere near fluent. But I would say actually that's one of the times where being a female and being sort of younger is quite helpful, because I can use my little bits of bad, broken Chinese and people will do their best to try and understand me and help, and just generally think I'm sort of useless, but they'll try and help. So in that sense, I found that it's okay. Like getting around, finding houses. Maybe I've been quite lucky, but people have always been quite willing to help, even if my Chinese is not that great. They can understand enough to know about what I'm saying.
For me, if you don't plug into the system, you will not last very long, and you'll find it very, very difficult. When I mean plug into the system, I sort of pick up a bit of your point about the language, but also things like how you pay for stuff. If you don't have your phone set up and things like this, you find it really, really difficult. It's sort of, China doesn't have a similar approach to what I would have in the UK, where it is, in the UK I think it's the country goes extra steps to try and make people that arrive to the country feel a bit more welcome and a little bit more inclusive. They give them a start, they give them a step up. Whereas here, you don't get that start, you don't get that step up. You have to find it. It's very self-driven. There's not a lot of support from outside of yourself.
That depends on the company as well. Like, certainly the company that I worked for was really good with what we did for people. Like, including giving bonuses and like prepaying housing allowances to help people find accommodation. We would have staff that would take people round to estate agents. We would recommend particular estate agencies and landlords and stuff like that. So I mean, I would say it's definitely not the country's responsibility to do it. It's the company that you join. And generally companies that don't do this sort of thing, what they generally find is their staff turnover is really high. Whereas if you look after people when they first get here, and you show them actually it's not a terrifying place, it is relatively normal most of the time, you help that initial 3-month period, people feel way more settled. Yeah,
I think the company can help, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's right what you say, but the company can only do so much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the employees within that company can only do so much, and because things are so different here, the way that you prepare yourself to come here, it's impossible to know all of the obstacles that you're going to meet early on. Yeah. So, for example, my bank account's in UK. I can't bring my card and go and pay in a shop. I wouldn't know that until I arrived here. You know, so you arrive here and then you think, okay, all right, I have to make these different adjustments, which I didn't know about before. So when I'm sat having been here a few days, and then I'm expected to pay 3 months rent, a month of fees and a month deposit. And then I was going to pay on my credit card, but they don't take this credit card here. So you don't know that until you arrive.
Again, that for me all comes through the company. Like that's what your company should be providing you with before you get to China. Like it's one of the things that when we would hire new staff, it's the first thing we send out. Rent is paid generally. It's 3 months. It's 3 months at a go, and usually you have to pay 1 month of deposit and occasionally 1 month of agency fee, depending on whereabouts you are in the city. So that information is given up front. And I think I really sympathise with that situation because it seems like it's certainly not an uncommon situation in China, I would say. And so much of that is just solved by a simple little bit of information that is sent before you actually come to the country.
Yeah, I would think you go back.
I agree with what you guys say, but let's bring it down to the basics. Sometimes if you need to find the basic things, maybe hair products or skin products or whatever.
I don't need to worry about hair products so much.
It's really hard to find that here in China, and you have to ask some people home to bring it for you, or to get connections of foreigners living in China who have those things so that they can ship them to you. So that's one of the challenges I've gotten in China. Just I can't even proper take care of myself because of that. Because sometimes I run out of products and I need to rely on people.
Well, I was going to say, I think that the one thing that affects living the most in China is I think that often there's a sense of instability amongst foreigners, because if something does change, you were talking about your company or your landlord or something, if they decide to change something, you can suddenly go from being in a position where everything's fine to being completely helpless. And I've been really lucky that I haven't had that, but I have had people, friends, who've just suddenly been fired out of the blue, and they can't do anything, or their landlord has suddenly said, you're moving out, within a few days. And they can't do anything because you just don't have those legal protections that you're used to, and as a foreigner I think you're often not expecting that. So I think that even if that hasn't happened to you, there's quite a lot of instability, and that could be quite concerning. And of course if you have a great company that helps you out, that's useful, and probably removes that. But yeah, for most people I think, or even if you are in a great company and they just suddenly decide they don't want you, you don't have that protection.
I mean, the housing one, it seems to be a universal thing in Beijing. A friend of mine once got home and he sent me a picture saying, what does this character mean? It was character Chai, to destroy. So it's it's oh yeah, so it seems like my building's getting knocked down. I've got 2 days to move out.
Yeah, well, I was talking to a friend yesterday who was just saying that she'd been given 3 days notice to move, so just suddenly had to pack all of her stuff in one day, find a new place. And of course a new place involves that, like you said, 3 months, another month deposit, and in 3 days, that's crazy.
And contracts don't really work. You sign all these contracts with your work or your house, your apartment, whatever. But at the end of the day, whatever the landlord says goes.
Yeah.
If they decide not to give you back your deposit, they're not going to do it. You can't do anything about it. Even if you take it to court or anything, it's going to take a long time for them to
just
even
don't have the
consider
same simple protection.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what they say for the contracts is, in case of language dispute, the Chinese contract is absolute. And I don't know how true this is. Could just be one of those rumours you hear on WeChat, but the English contract and the Chinese contract are actually different. So you think you're signing something that has some protection, but actually it's we can fire you at any point, or we can kick you out of the house when we choose, and stuff like that.
No, it's true. That does happen.
Yeah, you definitely need a Chinese friend or someone from your company to be with you to sign, or even to look over the contracts, because like you say, there could be a little, disclosure that you can't read it in Chinese, and, you've then signed it, you signed your life away.
I mean, there are some estate agents and stuff that are generally a little bit better than others. The first bit of advice I got here was don't find anything on the BEIJING app. Don't go to the Beijing. But that was like 7 years ago, so I don't know if it's changed. Sorry, Beijing.
Sorry.
I think that's what I was going to say. One of the hardest things for me living here goes back to what you said at the beginning about being stubborn. I have a really hard time saying no, but I think like being able to be stubborn can be super important, especially when things like housing crises or like issues with your contract come up, or even just like walking down the street if someone's trying to sell you something, like just being stubborn and like being able to say no, and like
it's really important.
Like protecting yourself, and
It's great.
yeah, like that kind of attitude is something that I struggle a lot with, and so it's something I've had to learn while being here.
But I also think that part of that stubbornness comes with a confidence that you're stood on solid ground. And if you don't know your legal rights, you don't know the situation you're in, sometimes you don't know if you're actually the one in the wrong, because you're arguing for something that is not reasonable for you to get here.
Yeah.
You know, so that unknown, that bit that we say, if you've got a Chinese friend, they can help you out, but we don't all have that situation, you know. So, and if people come here, they need to get as much information as possible, for sure, and know those different things. That would be my advice, definitely.
I think your point is so true, because sometimes I just go loud, and then at the end of the day I look foolish because they win. I don't really know what I was talking about, because I didn't really know what was up. So I think your point is really true.
And I would say as well, following on from the point about insecurity, it's really important to have like a backup plan. So have some savings, know how to get back if you need to.
Destroyed or something like that.
Yeah, in case you need to find a new place suddenly, or in case your work just decides to fire you for no reason.
They change the visa rules or something.
Yeah,
like
or
that.
they change the visa rules and you've got a few days to like pack your whole life and go back home. You know, it sounds like it wouldn't happen, but I'm pretty sure everyone here knows someone that has happened to. So yeah, it's important to know what you would do in a situation like that and have it in place. So
Definitely. Good. So that moves on to I think you pre-checked me questions. So next question was asked, how do you make friends in China? Like what a WeChat?
yeah, WeChat.
You got it.
Do things, go out, talk to people. I've met people just like walking around parks and talking to them. And this goes back to what you were saying, where knowing a little bit of the language, or knowing the language before you get here, is really helpful. If you play sports, that's a great place to meet people. Meeting people at your work, like making a conscious effort to like try and interact with them outside of whatever it is that you normally see them doing, I think are all really great ways to make friends.
I think connect with expat groups, definitely. I think that's the difficult one. I think once you make that initial connection, then you open up a whole network of support in many ways. But getting that initial connection, I mean, for me personally, my wife's Colombian, so South Americans tend to be quite welcoming people. So it's almost like the moment she landed, she was on WeChat and she was part of like 5 groups straight away. And then it just goes from there. So I just piggyback on what she was doing, and then met someone from Metalana, and then from there it went, and then met up with more British people from there.
Yeah, I think WeChat groups, and it doesn't have to be expat groups necessarily, but things like with a shared hobby, so you can meet people who enjoy the same things you do. And obviously, like for me, it's a bit different because I run a charity group, so a lot of friends I've made by giving them a cat or a dog, but I guess not everyone can do that. And still, it's that same thing of finding a common interest. And yeah, WeChat groups are great for that. Or even like for me, when I first arrived here, I went down to a sort of local expatty looking bar and just started talking to a load of people. And yeah, I think there's like a lot of good websites as well that help people connect.
Like certainly expats here are generally like quite welcoming because I've done like the same thing as what you do.
People just start talking to you if you're standing there looking lost for a second.
It certainly wouldn't happen in London or something like that because the British reservedness comes up. But here you find like generally like, I guess the best way I can describe it is people's guard is sort of down, and you know they see someone who maybe is looking a little bit lost, a bit confused, and a conversation, a relationship starts. Like I made most of my like closest friends here through music. So I used to go to the same jam night every week when I first got here. Make a nice circle of friends. You get to know the musicians. You play in a bunch of bands, and it's quite something how you make friends in your home country. You go out and do stuff, right?
And just be brave as well. Like if there's someone that you think you want to talk to, just go talk to them. Like say any shit. Like
the worst thing to say is no, I don't want to be your friend. And then you're in the same stage.
You can just go like, hey, I like your hair, or whatever the equivalent is in Chinese that you like. Yeah, I'll do. Where'd you get your shoes from? Yeah, maybe not for guys.
All questions that I never get asked.
I think it's really easy to walk up to Chinese people and just do that.
But
foreigners have some kind of attitude. I don't know if it's all of them, but foreigners in China, I don't know if it's just me, but I haven't just walked up to somebody and say, hey, can we be friends? Like, unless we're in the same class.
If someone did that to me, I would probably say no.
That might be your approach.
Exactly. Yeah, maybe my approach.
I think if you go and just talk to them casually, like, that's fine.
No, that's yeah. I feel like
I'm more of a WeChat person because once I meet somebody for the first time, I'm just so shy or scared or like I don't know what to expect. And I don't want to be bashed for whatever I can. So, you know, I just prefer like online kind of thing. Yeah.
WeChat has the translate button as well, so that's really helpful if you meet locals. Definitely.